With so many services offering subscriptions these days, it's really easy to lose track of what we pay for. So in today's Notion build, we are going to create a subscription tracker that is going to keep track of everything that we pay for on an ongoing basis. And as an added bonus, you are probably going to find a few subscriptions that you forgot you were paying for and can cancel and save a little bit of money. Now, a few disclaimers before we start on this build. Number one, it's going to be more of an intermediate to advanced build just because we're using a relation, a roll-up between two databases, and then we're also bringing in two formulas that are both nested if statements. So if that scares you, maybe this isn't the video for you, but I kind of would like you to go through it and try it because the way I'm going to show you is step by step. We're going to take it slow so you can see how everything works and you might start to understand a little bit more about Notion formulas. Now, my second disclaimer is that this is not a bill pay tracker where you're going through and actively checking off bills that you log into the website and pay. This is just for subscriptions that are recurring and coming out of your bank accounts or credit cards on an automatic basis. If we want to do a bill tracker pay system in Notion, that's going to be even more advanced than what we're talking about today. So if you want to learn that, if you want to turn your subscription tracker into a full bill pay tracker, let me know in the comments. Maybe you can talk me into filming that video. If we haven't met yet, my name is Kalyn, and we talk a lot about Notion here because it is my preferred productivity system. So I share a lot of tutorials and best practices and build with me's, but I also share productivity tips and my habits and routines. So if you nerd out about that stuff, I would love to have you join me on this journey. Click the subscribe button and we'll make it official. Let's go into Notion and start building this out. If you want to do this with me step by step, you can pause the video whenever you want, grab your computer, follow along. Otherwise, you can just watch it through, see how I do it, and then decide if you want to build it, you can go back and then pause the video where you need to. But first, we need to create a page that is going to be like our subscription dashboard. We're going to put two different databases on this page, so I don't want to turn the page directly into a database. So let's just use the plus sign to create a new page. I can click page, and we're going to call this subscriptions. Let's do subscription tracker. And you can add an icon and a cover photo if you'd like. I'm going to do this really quick. Let's just do a money icon symbol. And then we're also going to, I don't love all the stock photos of the money up here, but this one doesn't look bad. So let's try that. And then you can go up to the three dots on the right-hand side. I do this for every single Notion page that I create from scratch and toggle on full width just so we have a lot more space to work with. Now we want to create our subscription database. So again, you can click the plus sign or you can use the slash command to bring up all the different blocks that you can choose from. I'm going to type in table because I want a table view database to start with. Don't get confused with this table basic block because that's not actually a database. We want table view under the database section. So I'm going to click that, and then you want to do new database. And we will title this one subscriptions since this is where we're going to put everything that we pay for. The name section is pretty self-explanatory. These are going to be all the subscriptions. So go through your bank accounts, go through your credit cards, see what's coming out on an ongoing basis. And this is where you're going to find those subscriptions that you're like, oh, I had no idea that I was still paying for it. I totally thought I canceled it. So for an example, let's just do 3 here. We'll do Netflix. We'll also do Amazon Prime and a Costco membership. And you can add icons to each of these as well. So I'm going to go through and do that quickly. Next, you can shrink the column by just clicking on this vertical line and squeezing it over to the left. Next, we want to add some more properties to this database. If you're new to databases and properties just add a little bit more information and context to the names and items that we have here. Each of these is an individual page. So we can open up the page to add some properties, or we can do it here on this table view. I'm just going to do it straight here on this dashboard page. Now we do need a tags property. That is the default property that Notion will give you with every single database that you create. However, we don't want it to be a multi-select property because we want to add the cycle that these subscriptions come through. So whether it's monthly, annually, quarterly, semi-annually, and we only need a select property for that because no subscription can also come out like annually and quarterly. So let's just click on that and go to Edit Property. And instead of the type being multi-select, let's go and click Select. And then let's add some options to it. So like I was saying, monthly, annually, and you can just type these in and hit Enter, semi-annually, and then we also have quarterly. And you can drag those around depending on the order that you want to see them. So I'm going to do monthly first, quarterly, semi-annually, and annually. That looks good. Now we can go ahead and assign our cycle to these names. First, though, I want to rename this tags to cycle so we know exactly what that property is. So Netflix is going to be on a monthly basis, Amazon Prime will be annually, and Costco will also be annually. And I'm going to shrink that column down as well. Our next property is really self-explanatory, and this is just going to be a number property, the amount that we pay for this subscription. So we'll click the plus sign and we'll search for the number property, and then let's rename this amount, and we can change the icon on this one to a money icon. Looks a little bit nicer than the pound sign. And then the number format, we want to make sure that this is US dollar or whatever currency that you use. We'll click the X and assign amounts to each of these subscriptions. So Netflix is going to be, I think it's like $11.99 right now. Amazon Prime, I believe I paid around $159 for the past year, and then Costco memberships I know run for about $60, and we'll shrink that column as well so that we have more space to work with. This next property is going to be our first formula property, and it's actually optional. This is going to be a per monthly amount that we need to pay or set aside for this subscription. So if you've ever heard of the term like sinking funds, it's where you are setting aside an amount of money per month so that when it comes due, when that bill comes due in the next year or quarter or semi-annually, you have enough set aside to pay for that and it doesn't take you by surprise. So if you want that in your subscription tracker to see how much you have to set aside a month to pay for this subscription, then we need an if statement formula. And if you're not familiar with if statements, they're also called Booleans or true false statements. So basically, if this condition is true, then we want to take this action, otherwise do this other action. So let's do a formula property here. Click the plus sign, choose formula, and we're going to rename this per month. And I'm also going to add a little calendar icon to it so we don't have that ugly formula icon there. Then we can click edit and start typing out our formula. Now, this isn't just any if statement. We need to do a multiple if statement with a nested if statement. I know that sounds a little bit confusing, but stick with me here, you're going to get it. Notion has made multiple if statements or nested if statements a lot simpler with their new formula language by using the IFS function. So that's what we're going to do first. And remember, we need to say that if this condition is true, then we want to do this. So let's start with our first cycle, and we'll say if the cycle, so we're choosing that property, equals, we want to define what cycle, and equals is going to be two equal sign. That's how Notion reads it. You're going to do a quote because we have to put this string within quotes. If cycle equals annually, then we'll do the end quote. Then we do a comma. So we have our first condition. What do we want to have happen? We want to take the amount and divide it by 12 to get that per month number. For our next condition, let's choose cycle equals quarterly and do the amount divided by 3 because there are 3 months in a quarter. So whatever you pay per quarter, divide it by 3 to get that per month option. Then we want the false statement. Like, if this happens, then this. If this happens, then this. Otherwise, this. But if you remember, we still have 2 more cycles to go through. We have semi-annually and monthly. So we need to like nest another if statement in there. So we'll do IF, just the normal one, not the IFS. And if cycle equals, let's see, what do we have left? Semi-annually. Then the amount needs to be divided by 6. Now we have the final, like, what happens if none of these statements are true? We just want the monthly option, and that's just going to be the amount property because it's already a monthly amount. Let's click done. We have no errors here and see if that works, and it does. So we just need to format this property like we did with the number property and make sure it is a specific currency. So now we're going to squeeze that column down, and that is our first if formula. How are we feeling about it? Because we've got one more to do. We're going to take a little break though and do something really easy, and that will be a start date property or a date property. This doesn't necessarily have to be the start date when you like first started this subscription. It's just when is the next payment coming up. So let's label this start date. And for Netflix, let's just say it came out on the 15th. Amazon Prime is going to come out on the 26th, and Costco will come out on the 31st. Okay, I gave you a little break. Let's start with our next and final if statement formula. So we're going to add the plus sign here and choose formula, and this property is going to be our next payment. So based on the start date, when is our next payment due? When is it coming through our bank accounts? Let's change the icon to this upward arrow to say like it's another payment in the future. And now comes the doozy of a formula, and let's start typing this in. As I'm going through this formula, this one is a lot, it uses the same structure as the previous if formula that we did, but there is a lot more involved with it because we're bringing date functions into play. So if this just seems really confusing to you, don't worry. In the description, I will have a link to a Notion page where you can just copy and paste both those formulas that we are doing here today. However, I would like you to try to type it out with me, because something that I found in my own studying and learning of Notion formulas is I didn't know what I was doing if I was just copy and pasting formulas from someone else. I really needed to understand what was happening behind the scenes. So that's what I'm going to try to share with you today, and hopefully it starts to make some sense. So like I said, we're going to do an if formula, and we need to go through the 4 different cycles. So if, it's an annual cycle, then we want to push the recurring or the next payment date up 1 year. However, we do have to make sure that we are taking into account where we are currently in the calendar year so that it will keep pushing it forward. So we're going to do that with date add, date between, and some now functions. So let's start with the IFS statement. And so if the cycle equals annually, we'll just do it in the same order that we did in the last one. Then we need to have a date add function. So we're going to type in date. You can select date add, and we can choose the start date property. So if cycle is annually, we want to add something to the start date, but we want to take into account where we are here now. So we're going to do a comma, and we're going to do a date between function. Date between now and the start date. We need to have both for this to work properly. So date between now, and then we have comma start date. And we want to make sure that this is recognized in years. So we're going to do quote years. Notion can do years, months, weeks, days, quarters, hours, minutes. They cannot do semi-annually, so we're gonna do something a little bit different when we get to that point. So we've got date add, and we've got the date between function in there. Now we wanna say, like, how many years do we want to go in the future? So let's move to the right of this parentheses because we're closing off that other function and doing +1, years. And that's our first condition of what we want to happen when the cycle says annually. Now let's move again to the right of the parentheses because we're closing off that condition, doing another comma so we can put another condition in here. So let's do cycle equals quarterly, and we'll add the date add function again, date add start date, take into account the date between now and the start date. And this one we want to do in quarters. So quote, quarters, end quote, put it in that string so Notion can recognize it. Move to the right of that parentheses so Notion understands that that is a closed off function. And we're going to do +1 quarters. There's our next one. Move to the right of the parentheses, and we need to add another if statement inside this nested if statement, just like we did with the first if formula. So we'll do a comma here, and the if statement, not IFS, but we're going to put the same thing in it if the cycle equals semi-annually. Then the date add start date, and comma, date between now and the start date. And this one, it's a little funny. We've got to do it in months. So we're going to say +6, months. The only argument or condition that we have left is the monthly option. So we don't need to say if cycle equals monthly, we can just go straight into the date add function. So I'm going to do comma, date add, start date, comma, date between now and the start date. And we're going to do this in months. And then +1 month. We don't have any errors, so let's hit done and see if this works. And it did populate, so we've got Netflix. The start date's March 15th, that's when the next payment is coming out, and then the payment after that's gonna be April 15th. These ones down here, they were annually, so they are a year in the future. And so when it gets to March 26, 2025, then it's going to push it forward to March 26, 2026. But it wouldn't do that if we didn't have that now function in there. So that's very important to have with this specific formula. All right, you made it through that formula. I know it was a doozy, but now we're going to look at some different views of this subscription tracker because maybe it's not necessarily helpful to see it in this table view. So one of the things, actually two views that I like to show are a board view. So I will click the plus icon up here to create a new tab or a new view, and you can click board view, and then you can organize it or group it by a specific property. This one has already grouped it by annually, monthly. I don't have anything for quarterly or semi-annually yet, but if I did, they would show up as well, just so you can see a list of all your annual subscriptions and all your monthly subscriptions. That might be a little bit more helpful view. You can also toggle on some different properties. So let's actually just type this by cycle so you can see what that is. And then I'm going to click the three dots up here, click on properties, and show the amount. And I'm also going to show the next payment that comes out, just so that I think that information would be helpful to see. Another view that you might find helpful is the calendar view. So I'm going to do plus, do another view, calendar view, and then I want to show the calendar not by start date, but actually by next payment date. And that's not going to show up until March 2025. So let's just quickly go through and see that these show up there. There they are for at least the annual ones, and you can again show the amount by toggling on that amount property. So we'll go back to this March because you can also see here in April it has Netflix, and when it gets to April 15th, then Netflix will show up on May 15th. It doesn't show up right now, but it will after the 15th has passed. So that might be another view that you want to see. Now this next part is optional. You could totally stop right here and just use the subscription tracker as is. I want to stretch our skills a little bit more and add another database where we're doing a relation and a roll-up property to connect these two databases together. And that database is going to be a category database. So if you wanted to categorize your transactions or your subscriptions and see how much of each subscription category you had. So we're going to click the plus sign, or you can do the slash command, and I'm going to type in, let's do another table view database, just because I think that will be a lot easier. And we're going to do new database, and we're going to call this categories. We have entertainment categories, and we also we'll do memberships. If you had your own business and you had some tools that we're using with that, you could also do business tools and have that be a category as well. We don't need this tag property, so I'm going to edit that property and turn it into a relation property. This is how we're going to connect the two databases together. We're going to relate them. So I'm going to click type and type in relation. And now it's allowing me or prompting me to link to another database. So I'm going to link to subscriptions, and let's show this on the subscriptions, and we'll show this as category and click add relation. Now up here on the table view, we should see, a new option. So I'm going to click on that, and I'm going to change this to a tag, just so it looks a little bit different from the next payment property. And Netflix will be in entertainment category. Amazon Prime will put under memberships, and we'll also put Costco under memberships as well. And since those look a little funky without icons, let's just go ahead and give them an icon. Now that we've related these two databases, we can add a roll-up property, which is going to roll up some information from another database into this one. You cannot have a roll-up property without a relation because you have to relate the databases first. So let's click the plus icon here and type in roll-up. And what we want to roll up is the amount that we spend, the per month amount that we spend in this specific category. So let's name this monthly expense, change the icon to the money, and now it's going to prompt us to select a relation. So we want to select it, and actually I did not rename that, so that's why it said tags. Let's just rename this subscriptions here. Let's go back in here. And so we've got relation to the subscription tracker. The property that it's rolling up now by default is the name. That's not helpful for us to see. So let's go and choose the per month option, per month. And instead of showing the original, because you can see here of what it's just showing the different expenses with a comma in between, let's show the sum of that because we have two annual memberships that are in the category of memberships. So total per month option that we would be spending on memberships is $18.25. So I hope you can start to see like how that works in terms of relations and roll-ups. I know they can be confusing for people. It took me quite a while to wrap my head around it, but relations, you're relating to another database. Roll-ups, you're rolling up data from that database. Now that we have our two databases on here, let's start to organize it and rearrange the page a little bit so it's actually something functional. So I'm going to have two columns. So I'm going to click the plus sign, do the slash command, type in two to do two columns, and I want to drop each of these into columns next to each other. I also want to change this category database into a list view. So I'm going to do the three dots and go into the table layout and choose list view. I'm going to toggle off show database title because we're going to add our own titles. And the only property that I want to see is the monthly expense, like how much per month am I spending in each of these category areas. If you hover in between the two databases, you are going to see a dividing line, light gray line, that you can then shrink this because we don't need to see a whole extra space over here. And then let's actually change this to the calendar view and go to the three dots and toggle off the database title here as well. So now we can see, if we move over to April, we can see what is coming up. The last step is to add our headings. So I like to do H3 headings. So I'm going to say that this is categories, pop it up there, and do the plus sign, and 3 dashes will give you a dividing line. You could also color this category header as well by clicking the domino icon, color, and we'll just choose green since this is a money related page. I'm going to highlight both of those, Command C for a Mac, and put them over here, and then rename this one subscriptions. So now that just looks a little bit nicer. The formulas are already in place, so you could come over to this table view. You can add a new subscription whenever you start paying for something new, and based on the cycle and the amount that you put in there, those two formulas are going to work for you. You have to put in the start date too of when you start paying that subscription, and then it will show up for you on the calendar view. And then on the left side, you can see how much you spend in each category. The reason why I really wanted to share this build with you is because it is a little bit more involved, but it's going to start getting you used to relations, rollups, and formulas. And if you really want to take Notion to the next level, that is where you need to start growing and need to start learning those options, because then you can just do so much more with Notion to organize your life and business and everything in between. If you like this video, make sure you give it a thumbs up. I know we worked through a lot here, so thanks for sticking with me. Let me know if you want to see any other Build With Me tutorials in the comments. I can't wait to connect with you there, and I'll see you in the next video.